What is up, Bleach fans? Simon here. Welcome to HannaTalk. Hope you're all doing fantastic. It is a pretty chilly day here in Australia, but hope you're all doing really well nonetheless. Today I'm here with a very special guest. Now, he is an actor who is best known to fans as Yumichika Aishigawa from Bleach, but he's also played across a variety of other shows such as Zatch Bell, Digimon, Battle B-Daman, Danganronpa, Naruto, Sailor Moon, and many, many more. Please welcome Brian Beacock.
Hello, hello.
How are you, Brian?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm very, very well, thank you. Considering what the weather is like outside, it's quite chilly.
Oh, is that right? It's
Yeah.
nice here.
Oh, fantastic. Now, obviously, because of what's happening in the world at the moment, with during this difficult time with what's happening with the pandemic, how have you been keeping things up, especially on the acting side of things?
Well, it's been strange. I've actually had a couple on-screen, on-camera auditions that I've done for. One was for CSI, and one was for a couple small films that they're just casting now for when things eventually do, go back into production. Excuse me. As far as voiceover goes, I just did my first live audition, which would then turn into a live Zoom recording for an anime today. And
Wow.
unfortunately, I just encountered all kinds of technical issues. It's definitely a learning curve, so we're regrouping again tomorrow when I know better what I'm doing. But yeah, it's really tough. Some people were kind of prepared for it as far as voiceover goes, um, and a lot of people that are working on movies and stuff will probably get back to work sooner than those in television. Movies are probably going to be sequestering their actors for 3 or 4 months, but it's difficult when you're doing episodic TV that shoots for the better part of the year. You can't sequester people from their families for that long.
That's definitely true about that. In fact, because there was a video that I came across which was talking about Rick and Morty, which is now I think they've started talking about because of the whole like extra 70 episode plot when I think season 4 started happening, how they said that for animation it's much easier for them to work with this pandemic because like it's purely animation based, even though animation takes such a very long time to get even just one episode out. But it's definitely true about the way that like films, like as you said about before with films and television, how they've had to push back, they had to push the release dates because of what's happening with the virus at the moment. And but even some TV productions have that were I think have already started doing production and have already been scheduled to release around later this year. But that's fantastic. You've got a bit of extra like a lot of live action work happening, but also still keeping the animation side of things up. So
Definitely trying to do that. Yeah, I was supposed to be working on American Idol. I work on that show, and of course they went to having all their talent recording at home. So that job went away. But shows like The Voice, they're actually bringing the talent into the studio, which is very strange.
wow.
Um, just Carson Daly and the singers are inside the studio, and I think their crew went from like 350 people to like 40, and then the judges are still at home. So people are definitely finding their way. Saturday Night Live is doing those shelter in place episodes. Parks and Recreation did an episode like that. So it's really interesting how this how the industry, voiceover, TV, movies, how it's going to come out of this, and how many of the things that we've had to adjust to and make do with will remain. Are things
Mm.
saving people money? Are they saving people time? Who knows?
That's definitely true about that. And as you said before, like it's fantastic that a lot of these shows are still keeping going.
I'm
Like
so
even
glad.
I'm so glad about that as well. Especially like even though they've had to restrict it in such a way because of the virus at this point. But as you've mentioned about before, the last couple of projects you've got, like they'll get back in some projects and some media productions will get back into like a sense of normality, like sooner rather
Yeah,
than later in some way, which is fantastic.
I
Now,
hope so. I hope so.
absolutely. Now, let's start right at the very beginning of your career. How did you get started in acting?
Well, gosh, I was acting probably when I was 10 years old, doing plays and things like that. I did it all through high school. Um, I was doing a lot of musical theater and moved to Los Angeles after doing the second national tour of Les Miserables. I did that for a year and a half in San Francisco, and was doing some, some background work and very little TV, but no animation at all, for sure. And I started booking some theater in LA, and I booked a one-man show called Fully Committed, where I played 38 different people, using no costumes, no makeup, just your voice and, facial expressions and things like that. And a friend of mine at the time, Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, who I was working with at Universal Studios in the Beetlejuice Graveyard Rock and Review, she was directing Digimon at the time, and she brought me in to audition for season 3 of Digimon for the role of Takato. And I had never done voiceover, I'd never done animation, I had never done dubbing, anything like that. And I auditioned for that job and got it. And that job started my entire voiceover career.
Wow.
It was just that one job. Yeah. So I was really lucky to get it. I mean, I was right for it. But as far as knowing what I was doing, I completely did not know what I was doing. So I was able to learn on the spot. Thank goodness.
Right, so
I'm really grateful for that show.
fantastic. So very much like a right place at the right time kind of situation.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
And of course, you mentioning about, of course, with like having a lot of experience working in theater productions, and and then later on going into the voiceover work. How much has the experience in theater helped you, especially in the voiceover world? Has that really helped you that much in your voice acting?
I definitely think the fact that I was a musician and a singer, that's definitely helped the voiceover world, especially if you do need to do things like voice matching or sound alikes, or even if the director says, do that line exactly the way you just did it, just do it a little faster, and they play it back for you. Being able to hear yourself and hear what you did, it's all music,
Mm.
So theater definitely helped me in that respect. And then also just performing. You're
Mm.
an actor, um, number one. So just voice acting is acting. So being on stage for 20 years of my life, 25 years of my life, definitely is a tool that I use when I'm in the booth. But
Right.
it's different because, you're on stage, you've got all those other things to help you, the costume, the lights, your face, blocking, body language, everything. And then you get in the booth and it's just your voice. It's a
Right.
completely different skill in that respect.
I would definitely imagine that, and it's funny that you mentioned about, of course, with like obviously having had that experience as a musician and a singer, like you see it in that kind of analogy in some way. And speaking for myself as a musician, I definitely can relate to that sort of experience in that fact, and that's fantastic. And who?
Yeah, like even I'm a drummer too. I play piano and drums, but being a drummer, when someone says like, more staccato, or this section's going to be 5.5 seconds long or 3 seconds, like you really know rhythm, you really know timing,
Mm.
and I'm so grateful that my parents forced me to play piano when I was 7.
Excuse me. Well, it's also funny that you mentioned that because like a lot of the voice actors that I've heard about in the past, even some that I've interviewed on HannaTalk, a lot of them have a lot of those musical backgrounds or have experiences or have musical careers themselves outside of being voice actors. So they have a certain, I think in a way they have like they can use that to their advantage in a way on the voice acting side of things. As you said about before, especially working on anime, it's like, you have to nail it right in the spot on those lip flaps, and it really works and helps with a sense of timing in a way.
Definitely, yeah. And of course, if you're a singer, then you've got the vocal range, and you understand if something's more staccato or legato, or baritone, bass, alto, soprano, etc. Like all that terminology for dialogue and language coming from a vocal singing background really really helps.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. And who or what inspired you to go into acting, and who would you consider to be your influences?
Oh wow. Who inspired me? Gosh, I don't know. It was a weird thing. It started literally when I was 5, 6, 7 years old. So I don't know if it was watching like the wonderful world of Disney as a kid on television, and just seeing, these fantastical places that these kids get to go, and musicals, and I was seeing musicals in theater as a kid, so that kind of was the starlight that hit me. And as I got older, and the way it is now, it's like I don't know how to do anything else. Like, I'm completely screwed. Like, I can't do anything else. So that's why I stay in the business, because I can't type. And who inspires me? Gosh, it changes all the time. I was just watching a tribute to Stephen Sondheim on TV last week, with all these Broadway actors that were singing from home. And Jake Gyllenhaal, who's doing Sunday in the Park with George in London, that I had tickets to see, that just got canceled. He's an incredible actor, and come to find out, he's also an incredible theater actor. And everything is so organic and grounded with him. So he's definitely someone that I've always really, really liked. Christian Bale, and of course, the Pacinos and the De Niros and all that stuff as well. There's just so many to mention. But I tell you, when I'm watching a movie or a TV show that has great writing or great acting, it just, like, I get goosebumps. It gets me so energized to go out and be a part of it.
Fantastic. So you don't necessarily list down like very specific actors as your influences, but you get influenced by a lot of, basically, as you just mentioned about before, with whether it's watching a great film or a TV show that has exceptional writing, exceptional acting inside of it, that just gets you that buzz. Like,
It really does. Like, a great production value, great writing, great cinematography and lighting. Like, when you can see a show, because there's so much terrible stuff out there, but when you see a show that grabs you, that you're watching, as we are all doing, we're all binging television shows, but show after show, episode after episode, just knowing how hard it is to find that magic from, starting from the idea to writing to production to post, it's really inspiring to see something come through that screen or that television or that iPhone, that moves you, and knowing that it came from this single germ, this idea in someone's head one day. It's really cool.
absolutely, that's fantastic. And with any sort of series or project that you've worked on, whether it's been like live action to voiceover work, do you walk into a series or a project expecting to play like a certain role, or is it just like walking up to a Jack in the Box, not knowing what to expect when you push the button or pull the handle?
Well, that's funny you say that, because a lot of the times, at least for anime, you're auditioning for a role, and they'll give you a paragraph, maybe, tells you a little bit about the character. Sometimes I've gotten roles that I have not auditioned for. They just thought I was right for it. Does not happen all the time, so I don't want people to go, oh my god, he gets everything. That's not the case. Sometimes it happens. But more often than not, when you start the show, there's a whole world that you don't know about with having to do with this character. So regardless of what they explained in that little paragraph description of him, you definitely, session after session, you're learning more things about the character. And there's a lot of times that I've been surprised, or it's not exactly who I thought it was. Yuma Chica was kind of that way. When I first read him, I think I just read a couple lines for him. And I don't even know that they were that specific to his obsession with beauty, or being such a egomaniac or anything like that. So that just came during the sessions. I started realizing what he was like. So that was a fun little discovery.
Right.
Same with Monokuma from Danganronpa. I just read a couple lines and got the part. It wasn't until I got to the studio that I realized, oh my god, this is one crazy bear.
So it's just like stepping into like Indiana Jones stepping into a tomb or something, just going like, I wonder what happens if I pick up this jewel from its hilt.
It totally is. It totally is. Now, having said that, there are roles that I like and that I like playing, but any actor that's listening knows that that's rarely our choice. People are not sending me scripts, so you audition. If you like the part, you like the money, and it works out with your schedule, then you take the gig.
Right. And have you ever turned down, which actually leads into my next question, have you ever turned down a role for like any particular reason apart from whether it was the script or the character itself?
No, it hasn't been that. Someone asked me that before, and I think my first answer was like, I never turned down work. Um, but I've never had something that went against my morals or my judgment. Or there's been a couple jobs I've done, very few that I wish I hadn't taken just because I wasn't really happy with the director. Um, I mean, like maybe once or twice, a long time ago. But what has happened is I've given up jobs based on my schedule to do other things, and really regretted it. I was
Mm.
supposed to be in a movie with Sean Hayes many years ago. It was his first film. It was called Billy's Hollywood Screen Kiss, and I had a lot of stuff going on. I was working double shifts, blah blah blah, and it didn't pay that much, and so I didn't do it. Well, it turned out to be a huge hit, so that kind of, that was kind of a drag. Um, there's another movie that I turned down just because it didn't pay a lot, and I was doing other stuff. I can't remember what it was. Oh, Willow. It was a movie
Mm.
called Willow. I was supposed to be in that. Not big parts, but it would have been really cool. So, and then I say yes to things like Howard the Duck. What kind of idiot am
Well, it's funny that you mentioned about, of course, with because I know for a fact that I think it was with Marvel or something like that that said they're planning on starting up like I think they were planning to do a Howard the Duck TV series. Like
They
I,
have to. They have to. The movie was so bad.
mm.
It was so bad. I mean, people love it. It's a cult following, whatever. But it was supposed to be edgy and dark and everything, and then they just kind of like whitewashed it so like it could be PG or something like that. I don't
Mm.
know. I don't know what happened to it. It was a blast to work on, but it's very weird. It's
Mm.
very uncomfortable to watch.
Especially if you're walking into like for example, if you're working on like a character or a franchise that is really, really well known, that people have certain expectations about
Yes.
what that franchise is supposed to be or what that character is supposed to be like. It's like I think to me, I would see it as the equivalent of like walking into a Batman project and all of a sudden him painting like a My Little Pony tattoo on the front of his bat symbol. That's like, and you'd be staring at that going like, what? What's going on here?
Just you watch. Someone's listening to this and they're going to do
That'll be an interesting crossover. But mentioning about, of course, with the movie with Sean Hayes as well as Willow, did you ever get the chance to work with Sean Hayes on any other projects or meet any of the
no,
actors?
I had a chance, and it didn't happen. But I knew Sean's partner through my publicist, and we were trying to get something worked out because they have a production company going, and it just didn't happen. And I was hoping while it was still going on to get on Will and Grace, and that didn't happen. And I knew the casting director for that, so it's just been a series of near misses and stuff with Sean. But he's friends of many of my friends, but it just hasn't happened.
Well, fingers crossed it definitely happens because that would be
Yeah, he's
fantastic.
not going anywhere, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Now, talking a little bit more about with regards to anime. Now, as many fans will know, that anime, for about 90% of the time, is usually based on on a manga story. Have you ever read the manga for any anime series you worked on, or were you familiar with or heard of a project or a famous franchise before you started working on that series?
No, I've never read a manga. I have them. People have gifted them to me, and I've actually been to bookstores and purchased them. But I've never read them. It's funny. I'm not a huge reader. Um, and when I do, I typically like biographies, and I'm just not a big like fiction or sci-fi or horror or anything like that reader. So I don't. I mean, I don't even know what they're like. I know you read them back to front.
Mm.
And I'm trying to think of one that I did know. I think I did know about, what was it? Oh, Bungo Stray Dogs I knew about.
Mm. Right.
But gosh, that was so late in my career. I mean, that's really that's like 25 years into my career. Yeah, most shows I had never heard of, which
Wow.
is really interesting. Yeah, because I haven't really watched that much anime. I watch more now, obviously, but when I got Digimon, I think the only anime I had ever watched was Speed Racer when I was a kid. It
Mm.
just was not my world. So I definitely watch more of it now. I'm watching Beastars right now, which is kind of cool.
Fantastic, fantastic. And speaking about, of course, as you mentioned about before, with Howard the Duck, which is of course is part of the Marvel universe at that time, would we hope to potentially see you guest star in another Marvel series down the line,
Oh my
whether a film or a TV
God, I
show?
would love it. I would love it. There's no, there's no talk of that currently, but man, no, that would be amazing.
Fantastic.
I think it would only be fitting for me to be in a Howard the Duck TV show. I still have my crew jacket from the movie, so from the terrible film.
Fantastic, absolutely wonderful. And with any sort of series or project that you've worked on, especially if your character is quite prominent across the series or part of a very specific storyline, whether it's like a TV show or a film, as mentioning about before with Yumi Chika, did you have an idea for like where your character was going to go in terms of the story or the overall story arc, or was everything recorded out of context?
Well, we've got some great directors and editors that I work with, and it's their job when we get into the session because we'll record 1 or 2 episodes, and then they won't see us again for 3 weeks to 2 months. So we don't really know what's going on when we come back into the studio. So they do a great job of explaining what's happening in the show. An
R-
interesting thing happened a couple of years ago, I guess, when they started these simuldubs,
Mm,
and so you would record it, you know, right after it came out in Japan. And I guess I'm not sure what the situation was, but it didn't have any information in the manga. But they didn't necessarily know where the characters were going, which was making it crazy making for the people that were translating and writing because they didn't want to write themselves into a corner. You
right.
know what I mean?
Mm.
So I don't know how they did it, but as far as my characters go, I pretty much was told where he was going as much as they knew.
Right, okay. Because
But
sorry,
I
please
was
go
just
ahead.
gonna say with shows like Bleach,
Hmm.
you have no idea. They're like, okay, well, in these next 8 years, this is what's going to happen to your character. They don't know.
Right, because I've been familiar with a lot of the simul dubs that have been announced over the last few years, and that seems to be the thing that a lot of anime has been going for nowadays, which I went like, wow, I had no idea that they were dubbing that fast, and especially hearing the description about that, like, so they would literally have no idea about where the series would be going at this point in time, even though they would have the manga still writ the manga it would be currently writing for that show. And it's going like,
Yeah,
oh, it's going like, okay, yeah, I know we've stopped at this one season of this series, but we're still writing the manga at the moment, and we'll see, and you're just gonna have to wait a while before we do the next series.
right.
But speaking about,
Yeah,
of course, with franchises, you obviously mentioned you talked about Digimon quite a fair bit, and you've played across in Digimon Tamers as just a moment. You've played across
Staccato.
as Takata, yes, Takata, that's right, yes. But you've also played across the entire Digimon series as well, various Digimon projects. What was it like stepping into the world of Digimon and playing that character?
Well, it's really funny. It was early on in my career. I hadn't done tons of television yet, and I'd never done animation. So at that time, Digimon was on Fox Kids, which was a really big TV network, and you know it was an after school television show. It was a big deal, and I was one of the leads. So for me, it was really really life changing and exciting. I would watch all the episodes. My family would watch. My mom would watch. And I would go over to Fox and record the television commercial promos, and it really was like being in on that level, a celebrity. Just really exciting. Definitely a step up from what I was doing in the industry. I was, singing and dancing at Universal Studios, making good money and having fun, but wasn't on TV. And
Right.
so, and also being in a new world of voiceover, um, and being in a recording booth wasn't new to me because I'd been a singer, so that was not uncomfortable for me. That was a very comfortable place to be. So it definitely, I could feel that it was the beginning of something for me, and that was special.
Fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful there. Now, as many people will know about, what of course, with the Digimon franchise, that across the variety of shows that we've had, from the original Digimon Adventure series to where it's going now, that the series has gotten quite dark in terms of the tone, in terms of the stories it was going for. What's been your opinion about them pushing into such dark territory from where it started with the original series?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, do you think that they're pushing for older audiences? Is that part of it? That's where their demo's going?
That's where I feel like it was headed. I think with the start, especially from Digimon Tamers, because from what I remember about that series, it was quite dark for a Digimon series.
It
Especially,
was.
it was
Yeah.
definitely, and they definitely pushed it into somewhat darker territory. I think as the franchise started going forward, especially when they did the revival series for Digimon Adventure Tri, which I know Joshua Seth returned for. So.
Right. Yeah, I mean, gosh, I don't know. Kids are growing up earlier, sad to say, dark and heavier stuff is just out there, and there's good and bad things about that. You know, you can
Mm.
make up your own mind. Um, but I do think it probably has to do with where the audience is, where their demo is, where their eyeballs are, and consequently where the money is, etc. For me, I am a big fan of things that are slightly darker or weird or heavy or different or mysterious. So I appreciate it. I just hope that there's definitely always, still content out there for the people that were watching, season one and season two.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. Now, speaking about, of course, with Digimon. Now, I did an interview with Joshua Seth a while back where we spoke a little bit about the new Digimon movie that he had just worked on, which, of course, is supposed to be the final film in this iteration of the Digimon Adventure series, and also spoke about the reboot, which is coming in the near future. Will we hope to see you like come back into the world of Digimon?
Oh my gosh, I hope so. So I don't think I'm in the film. I don't remember doing it. Now, the reboot, is this the one? I was at a convention not too long ago and someone was talking about this Digimon show. Is this where everything is taking place like inside a device? All the
Um,
Digimon are apps? Is that what that is?
As far as I know, this is supposed to be a reboot of the original Digimon Adventure series. So,
Oh, right, right, right. So there is another Digimon that they were talking about where basically the Digimon are essentially apps, like in an iPhone or
mm.
a smartphone. Very weird. Um, I don't know that that ever one came to fruition. Maybe it did. Um, but yeah, I mean, if they're doing a reboot of what, season one?
I believe so, yeah. I think it's supposed to just be a reboot of the Digimon Adventure series. So, the very first original series from the Digimon Adventures. So, that's about as far as I know. At least that's what they've said about it anyway. So, but as far as I know, they haven't. I don't think they've officially dropped the film that Joshua Seth was working on, and I don't think they've started production on the reboot series, as far as I know. But as far as I know, it's just supposed to be a retelling of the original Adventure series.
Gotcha. And it's the thing that happens here in America too is tons of voiceovers done in Los Angeles, and then a lot of other stuff is done in Texas at Funimation.
Mm.
So there probably will be bidding wars, and it depends on who is going to get the license for that show, and that sometimes can dictate what group of actors will then be in it.
That's true, because we've had several like reboots and revivals over the last few years from a lot of anime productions. I mean, Fullmetal Alchemist is the best example of that, but they got back, I think, most of the original cast
Oh, good.
for the Brotherhood series, and Fruits Basket is actually the next best example, which is now hitting season two. They got back pretty much the original cast from the very first series, like Laura Bailey, Jerry Jewell, Eric Vale, to come back and play their original characters again. So.
Oh, that's great.
So
Oh, that's
it's
awesome.
so it stands to reason they could do the same thing for this new Digimon series because Joshua Seth, I think, has said many times in the past with his character with Tai, he doesn't see anybody else playing that character but him. So I think it stands to
Well, of
re
course not, and I
yeah,
don't think the audience would want it either.
I don't think so either. So I think it would be absolutely fantastic if they did sort of like a crossover series of the original Digimon series and Digimon Tamers. That way, it can
I
have
agree.
like two completely approaches to Digimon within the one series. That
Yes. Yes. See, all your ideas are going to be stolen. People are listening, and people are writing. They're writing projects right now for sure.
Absolutely. And feel free to take it. Feel free to take it. I'm just the one giving off the ideas here. So that's fantastic, though. That would be epic if they did something like that. Now, one role that actually comes to mind for me, which was my intro to your work, was in fact Yamato Delgado in Battle B-Daman.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
Have fans ever approached you saying that they remember you from that series? And do you remember what it was like to play that character in a series like Battle B-Daman?
So it's a great. It was a really weird, fun time, and it's always amazing when people talk about it because it was not that popular in the U.S. But I was
Wow.
called over to New Zealand to do a convention, Armageddon
Mm.
Expo over there, because it was a crazy hit. People loved that show over there, and in LA, they couldn't care less. So when people do talk about Yamato, it is really rare, and it always makes me very excited. I've got these little cards, photos of Yamato that I sign and give to people if they mention it. I keep it in my suitcase at conventions, and most people have no idea who he is.
Wow.
Um, yeah, but it was very fun. It was I'm trying to think the name of the studio where I recorded that. It was somewhere on Burbank Boulevard in Los Angeles, and it seems like the series went on forever, but maybe it's just because I was in every episode, and that doesn't always happen. But
Mm.
I still have all the toys. I've got the little like Battle Beatamon toys that were out, and yeah, it was great fun. Great fun.
Fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. And my memories of that series was like it was definitely a very fun series for especially for like when I looked at the tone of the series, like a very Western kind of approach, very sheriff like gunslinger kind of series.
Totally.
And I'm going like where do I feel like I've seen this series before? I'm going like why am I getting like Beyblade vibes off from this or something?
Yeah, well, that's true. Very much so. Yeah.
But I definitely love the series just for how unique it was in the fact that they took it back to like Western kind of environment, but put like these very kind of Beyblade like these kind of toys that looked very modern for what it was during its time. And I thought
Yeah.
that's brilliant. That's absolutely fantastic.
Did you have the toys?
No, I didn't actually. I never did get the toys, but I used to watch the episodes like absolutely crazy whenever they appeared on Toonami in Australia. I would have loved to have purchased the Battle Beater Man toys. That would have been epic though. So I think they might sell them in Australia, but I'm not too sure about that. I'll have to check around and see if they have them somewhere.
I'm sure they're still on eBay. I'm waiting for the prices to go way, way up before I start buying.
Fantastic. And when you were speaking about, of course, with appearing at comic conventions and fans recognizing you for some roles more than others, has that ever kind of frustrated you in some way? How some fans recognize you for some roles that you're most well known for, but other roles that they might not necessarily have heard of, or that they've kind of stuck you in that one box of that one role that you're always known for?
I mean, again, I think a lot of actors would probably say the same thing, but we're all grateful to have work. So being pigeonholed is fine as long as they keep pigeonholing us and keep giving us those roles. Um, but I tell you, it is really fun to be at a convention and have just a couple people come up and recognize you from something that either you've forgotten or other people don't know about. They'll bring up a box of a video game or a TV show or something that you just has gone out of your mind, and um, that really, number one, it makes you feel old because you're like, oh, I did this 30 years ago. Um, but it's always kind of a neat, kind of unique situation with that person. They can tell you about the show or what it meant to them, etc. Um, yeah, and that's happened with Battle Beatamon. It's happened with Lloyd Irving from Tales of Symphonia. A couple other video games that I still believe that I never recorded, but they said I did. So who knows? Um, but I don't know. Anytime a fan comes up and wants to say hi or get an autograph or take a photo or whatever, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for it. I love conventions. I love to travel, and And yeah, I'm grateful for any time that they want to spend time with me, because that just means that I'm doing a good job, and they're enjoying it.
Fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful right there. Now, another role which was, of course, that I remembered you very fondly from was, of course, we spoke about this quite a fair bit, was Yumi Chika from the Bleach series. What was it like playing that character and in stepping into the world of Bleach?
It was great. Well, I don't know the timeline, but he may have come after. God, I don't know if Bleach was the same time as Naruto when I was doing Sakon or Nukon, or whether I'd just come off of Agumon 2.0 in season 5 of Digimon. I'm not sure. But Yumichika was definitely the first character that I played that was the closest to my real voice, that I didn't have to be really, really high, or, growling and making my throat bleed or whatever. So that was cool. I could just walk into the studio and do him, number one.
Mm.
And he was also just really cool. He was definitely cooler than I am, for sure. Um, tall and that long black jacket, and his weird eyebrows and hair, and it just was cool with all this kind of like wonkiness that seemed to be going on in the show. He was very grounded and very powerful, but still like had this like flair about him, and
Mm.
this strange strength slash effeminate behavior. He was just really cool. It was really interesting. I don't think I've ever played anyone like him since.
That's fantastic, and that's definitely true about his character because I remember from having watched the Bleach anime from the very first episode right to the final episode where the anime had stopped. He was very kind of calm and collected in his
Yeah.
approach. Like even when all this craziness was happening all over the series, it's gone like, yeah, yeah, no problem. I can deal with this.
Right. Until he went ballistic and, took out his Fujigaku and killed everyone, but
Pr-
whatever.
Pretty much, pretty much. Now, speaking about, of course, with the anime, there were articles going about on the internet that have confirmed that they're planning on doing a revival of the Bleach anime in adapting the final arc from the manga, which
I heard
act
this.
yes, the Thousand Year Blood War arc. And we have fans ever come up to you talking about the final arc from the manga? And with which do you feel like there was more story to be told with the Bleach series down the line, possibly going down the Boruto arc?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think I think especially for I associate anime with television, and not it's episodic stories, can go on and on and on. And I think if they're well written, there's always more stories to be told, as it is continuing to prove. It's called the Thousand Year Arc. Is that what it is?
That's the one, yes.
I mean, I just don't know that I can do 1,000 more years. I can maybe do 20, um, but I have no doubt that Bleach will go on for 1,000 more years. Um, I think it's great. I think it's great. But again, it worries me because I think, where are they going to record it? Are they going to have everybody back? Um, you just never know with money and unions and
Mm,
bids and all that stuff. But I would really kill to play him again. That would be
that would
great.
be fantastic if it would. And it stands to reason, I think, because I think this was confirmed by the creator for the series, that I think he must have confirmed that the anime is adapting his final arc from the manga. And it's if Fruits Basket and Fullmetal Alchemist can get the original cast back for those revivals, the same thing can happen with Bleach. I have no doubt
I
about
would
that.
think so. I
Mm,
would think so.
absolutely. And
That's awesome.
that would be fantastic. Speaking about, of course, with Boruto, is you also played across the world of Naruto from the original series right into the Boruto series. What was it like stepping into the world of Naruto?
Naruto was great. I did a couple different parts. Of course, Chojiro's the one that went on to Boruto. Um, it's so funny. Like Chojiro, I was like the young guy in Naruto, and then I was like, I'm the dad character in Boruto. I'm the old guy. Um, but in Naruto, all I remember is those monster Sakon and Ukon characters. Do you remember them?
Possibly,
It's
possibly.
they're like dead, white-haired, scraggly monsters that like live in the forest, and he's got his dead brother on his back. They're twins. Um, they're just a nightmare, and the voices are like gravelly and scratchy and bloody and yelling, and I would do these all the time, and then the characters would die, so they would die, they get killed, and then I get an email a month later. Well, they're back, because it's anime. No one ever dies. It's like a soap opera. Um, and every time they did a Naruto game, these characters were in it. So these were definitely like throat killers. There were times I would record those roles and be out of commission for like 2 days afterwards for auditions or jobs. But I was grateful to have the work, but it was definitely bloody throat work.
Right. I can definitely imagine that because like I can definitely imagine as like with having to take on a variety of roles like that, you'd end up taking roles that would be very kind of easy on your voice, like especially in the example of Yumichika, which you kept that as close to your normal voice as possible, but you would end up pushing into roles that would really take quite a strain on your voice. And has there ever been a point in any of the series that you've done where you've pushed your voice, like you've have pushed your voice like way too far, like in the middle of a recording session or something?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if it's happened during an anime session or a game, but games are usually pretty careful to make you do all the crazy stuff on the back end. But I do think there were a couple times, probably around the time I was doing Naruto, that I had another session booked 2 or 3 days after, and I gave it my best shot in the beginning, but they could tell that I was struggling through it, so we had to reschedule. Um, it just depends on what they're having me do. I'm typically able to do a lot of really, really high, screamy falsetto stuff, Monokuma, things like that. But if it's too much like mid-range growl and scream, um, I'll blow myself out. But
Mm,
that's why that kind of stuff is usually put on the back end of the session.
right.
So it's very rare. My nickname is Leather Lungs, so I usually do pretty good. Um, but there has been times that I've been really overworked, especially if I'm doing like a singing gig or working at Universal as well or a play. Um, Eventually, you got to take a break.
Right, because of having a lot of those experiences, a lot of variety of projects from voiceover work to singing work, your voice is like one of the most important things you have, and you
I
have to
know,
take such really good care of it.
I know, and unfortunately, not unfortunately, but during a lot of this stuff, I was in my 20s, 20s, early 30s, and you still have a little bit of that I'm invincible behavior and attitude. And I'm a lot more careful now, obviously.
Fantastic. Now, a variety of other roles that you've done in the past. You've also played in Zatch Bell as Bianco, but you've also played in Monokuma from Danganronpa, and also Ali from Sailor Moon. What was it like working
Right?
across those series?
Oh my gosh. So Sailor Moon, first of all, I'm not in that much of it. It was a re-recording of the original series, which was interesting. They just took
Mm.
the old cartoon and re-recorded it. Um, and of course, my character is from like outer space and has a weird sexual relationship with his sister and plays a flute and then gets killed by a tree. That's basically my story arc. Um, Very strange, but he's really popular. I went to a Sailor Moon convention. I think it was in Canada, and even for those like 5 or 6 episodes that I was in, everyone was like, "Oh, I'm so excited." Um, so he was cool. Danganronpa, of course, that's Monokuma. I've done so many conventions because of that character, which is really great. He's so funny. He's so terrible. Um, the lines are just hysterical and offensive, and I can't believe I get to say them. And it's interesting. I do the video game, but I'm not in the series. Greg Ayers is recording the series, or was recording the series in Texas, and we recorded the video game out here in LA.
Mm.
That was a great job. That was a really, really great job. I think I did 3 or 4 games, but the benefit from that has really been great. The fandom and all that stuff. And then Bianco, the frog, right? Bianco's a frog.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so Bianco. Oh my god, I remember this session. It was one of my first voiceovers. I don't think it definitely wasn't before Digimon, but it was around that time. In fact, I think Digimon had ended, and I thought, okay, I'm never gonna have a career again. The show's over. I don't have any more jobs, and I got Zatch Bell. I was so excited. But Bianco, I went in and watching the playback, and reading the script, and it says something like, a firework shoots directly into Bianco's mouth and explodes. And the director pipes in on the speaker and
Ah.
goes, and that's a wrap for you. So that was my last day of Bianco. I flew up into the air, got a firework in my face, and exploded.
Wow.
Yep.
That's
And and again, I thought, oh, I'm out of work. No more jobs.
but then here you are now, and
Yeah, here I am now.
but I can't
Oh my
begin to
god.
imagine the reaction on your face when you saw that description, just going like, okay,
Right.
what?
Even before I saw the playback, like I'm just reading the script. I'm like, wait, what? I was like, yeah, you're done.
Well, speaking about, of course, with Zatch Bell. Now, I had the chance to meet Jason Spizak. I think back in 2014. I think which was the first year that I ever went to comic conventions at the AMC at the Armageddon Expo before they changed the name to AMC Expo. And I think this is when he was working on Young Justice at the time. And I asked him if we would ever see future dubbed episodes of Zatch Bell in the future. He said, if
Wow.
I'm said I have absolutely no idea, but if they can get the same cast back, if they can get Jeff Nimoy back as the voice director, that would be epic if they did that.
Jeff Nimoy is so brilliant. He's actually just released his new, I think it's a series. It's called Fame-ish, which is about he plays this character at Comic Cons. Very funny. It just dropped today, by the way. So search that. But Jeff
Absolutely.
Nimoy, of course, from the Digimon world, but he's just a phenomenal voice actor and voice
Fantastic.
director. We had a
Mm,
blast. But yeah, Jeff's the one that told me that Bianco is dead. So
wow.
he takes that responsibility.
Well, that's fantastic, and that's absolutely wonderful. Now, speaking about, of course, with video games, as you mentioned about with Danganronpa. Now, with the success of Detective Pikachu and recently Sonic the Hedgehog having broken the video game film curse, would you want to see a live-action Danganronpa film or TV series?
Oh my god. Yes. Yeah, I just don't know what the rating would be. Oh
Well, I
gosh.
think as far as I know, what they said about that, I mean, because I mean, obviously mentioning about before, we've had Detective Pikachu and we've had this year's Sonic the Hedgehog, and I think they've announced they're doing a live-action TV series on The Last of Us, so like really based on the game itself. So yeah,
Wow.
and knowing The Last of Us, which is an incredibly violent game, like very apocalyptic, very zombie-like, for any gamers out there that know what I'm talking about, it's an incredibly violent series. So I think it stands to reason if they can do it if they can keep the tone of the series authentic to the games, like very violent, very graphic, very
Yeah.
dark, it stands to reason they could do the same for Danganronpa.
Oh my god. I would just that I would kill to be in it, number one, but it's definitely something that I would watch. Absolutely.
Absolutely, that would be
Wow.
fantastic. Yes, that would be amazing if that would happen, because there have been several, I think, voice actors who have been known for playing primarily in video games. Like John St. John is the best example, where he's known
Yep.
as Duke Nukem, where he spoke. I think this was well before they did. I think Detective Pikachu, and I think they did Sonic the Hedgehog, where he heard about them doing the live action series on his character, and I think he got pretty upset about it. I think saying there's no one who wants to, there's no one who can play that role better than I can.
Right. I'll start making phone calls as soon as we hang up.
Fantastic. Now, speaking about, of course, with revivals and reboots, as we've just been talking about today, if you wanted to do another revival or reboot of one show that you've worked on, what would you want that show to be?
Well, I think it would be really cool to do Digimon with the characters older.
Oh,
I
yes.
would love to play Takato as a teen or a young adult or whatever. I think that would be really awesome.
Fantastic. And
Yeah, for sure, absolutely, hands down, that's the one that I would go for. Just because I just thought the writing was so good. I thought the story was so good, and if they could move further into that whole darker realm that they were going into, relationships and all that stuff, and some really heavy storylines, I think it'd be really, really great.
absolutely, that would be amazing if they did that. I think if they could do a revival for the Digimon Adventure cast that we've seen from the original series, it stands to reason they could do the same thing for the other Digimon series that we've seen post Adventures. So
Yeah.
it stands to reason. And which follows up into my next question. If you wanted to do a spin-off series of any show you've worked on, what show would that be, and what would you want the spin-off to focus on?
God, let's see. Let's see. Okay. I feel like it's got to be something like Yumachika.
Mm.
I don't know, like Yumachika living in modern times. Yumachika like living in modern day New York, you know, with like some kind of like menial job or I don't know, head of a hedge fund, something just really funny. And but he still has his Fujikajaku, and he still condemns everyone for not being beautiful. I don't know. I just think there's something very like odd couple there.
I can definitely picture something very odd couple in that sort of storyline. Just Yumi Chika, and also with Ikaku, just like in that sort of situation. That
Yes.
would be so epic if they did a story.
Perfect.
That would be so
Perfect.
epic if they did a spin-off like that. I think also in
Yes.
terms of spin-offs for the Bleach series, I'd love to see them go, I think, into the origin story about the Quincy's, maybe even the origin story of the Soul Society in and of itself.
Oh
Because
yeah.
I see Bleach as, to me anyway, as kind of like the Game of Thrones of anime. There's just so much mythology behind it, and
Completely agree. Yeah, Lord of the Rings, the whole deal. There's you can go any route and there's a story.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And where do you hope to see yourself with regards to acting in the long run?
What's that?
Where do you hope to see yourself with regards to acting in the long run?
Well, gosh, at this point it's so strange, isn't it? Like where what do we hope for? Um, I I was supposed to be filming 3 movies this year. Um, a couple of conventions in London, and I've got my web series that we won an Emmy for that I'm trying to do season 2 for. Um, ultimately, I would really like to get. I really like TV. I like movies, but I really like TV, and I'd love to be on a series again. I did a sitcom on NBC years ago. That was a blast. And I'd like to start writing some more. Um, I wrote a couple series, and I wrote a feature, but at this point, I'd just like to be able to safely go to an audition, if you know what I mean.
Fantastic, absolutely, that would be fantastic. And with having played across a variety of roles that you have, what is like one character or series that you've ever wanted to play or ever wished that you played?
A role that I haven't played and would like to.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Gosh, well, for for musical theater, I've always wanted to play. I've always wanted to play Sweeney Todd, but I think my voice is too high for it. But I've always wanted to do Sweeney Todd or Tobias. It's one of my favorite shows. I've always wanted to play Seymour in Little Shop of Horrors. I might be too old now, so I probably have to play the dentist. Um, and I don't know for anime. I don't know. I don't really have anything in anime that I haven't done that I would like to. I would definitely like to be doing more Monokuma. I want them to do more games. I would kill to go back and do more of that.
Fantastic, awesome. Now, across your entire career, whether in the world of live action or in voiceover work, what would you say has been like the one role that resonates with you the most?
Gosh, these are tough questions. Um, the role that resonates with me the most. Well, okay, so for anime, I always say this: it's always staccato. It's always staccato from Digimon because it was my first animation, and it was life changing, and it was amazingly directed by Mary Elizabeth Roll, and amazingly written. So for animation, I think Takata was the life changing, game changing role. For theater, I'm sure I would say probably when I got Les Miserables and did the second national. That was also, that got me my union card. That afforded me the chance to move to Los Angeles when that was done, and that again was kind of like a catapult catapult into the real world of show business. So yeah, those two things are probably the most life-changing experiences.
Fantastic. Now, having worked across in the world of voiceover and within animation, what is your view on where the voice acting and animation industry stands within the entertainment industry?
Because of the coronavirus, or just in general, where
Just
we were going before that?
just in general with that.
Well, it's really funny, I obviously I can remember back to when the one anime was that in America at least was Speed Racer. Um, it's so popular now, which is great. It's really great. Conventions are popular, cosplay's popular, but it's also really, really saturating the market. And technology wise, everyone's got these recording setups at home, except mine, which is crap. But so there's tons more competition. There's all these digital streaming platforms, so there's tons of content. So, and then the unions are changing the rules. We've got no residuals, and things aren't really on TV anymore. They're on Crunchyroll or Netflix or Hulu. So how do you pay for that? So it is definitely the Wild West, and has been for many, many, many years when it comes to not only TV but anime and everything, because of this digital world that we've entered. The good news is it's not going anywhere.
Absolutely.
Animation, anime, cartoons, they're not going anywhere. They're getting stronger and stronger. And I think, in part right now, due to this coronavirus, more and more of it is being produced, and it's becoming stronger and stronger, more affordable to get out there, and quicker to get out to the fans that are desperately looking for content. So there's a couple answers for you.
That's fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. And if you could change one thing about the entertainment industry, what would that be?
Move it from Los Angeles. Get it the heck out of there. One thing about the entertainment industry, oh my gosh, that's literally a laundry list. Well, they're kind of doing it now. I don't know if you know, but they're kind of removing the agents from all these contracts and bookings and all that stuff, and the agents were getting such a big percentage of the deal making in Hollywood and stuff, and they're kind of like moving them out, and that's helpful. Gosh, I don't know. I really don't know what I would change, except that, yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's just a tough industry, but you can't really say make it less tough, because there would just be more competition.
No, that's definitely true about that, because I mean,
I guess I would say make it less sleazy and make the people a little bit more nicer, make a little nicer and a little bit more compassionate and a little bit just not gross.
I definitely
Because there's a lot of that.
I definitely agree on that sort of perspective as well. And it's funny that you mentioned about, of course, with the pay cut, because I did an interview with Tiffany Grant a while back, and she kind of joked a little bit about this, but I say this to every one of the voice actors I interview, and actually on for many people out there who's been listening to the last few interviews I've done, and I've said this quite a fair bit, is people often ask me, like, why do you go to comic conventions? I go purely to meet the voice actors. I see them as my rock stars right there.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that.
Thank you. And she responded back saying, "Oh, yeah, we just we just don't have the big paychecks. That's all." So...
Exactly true. It's exactly true. I mean, it's definitely a world of different levels of success, financially and otherwise. But yeah, the good news is you can do this job and not be making tons of money, but still be seen as successful, still be doing great work, and still have millions of people hearing your work. And that's cool.
That's absolutely
true. That's not
true.
always the case, you know what I mean?
That's definitely true, but that's absolutely true about that, and that's fantastic that, like, you see it in that sort of perspective in some way. That's fantastic. Now, without going into any spoilers, what's next for Brian Beacock for the fans to know about?
So I do have 2 shows. I've got think 2 shows coming on Netflix, a show coming on Disney, and then 1 show that doesn't have a home yet. I think they are all multi-season, and I think a couple of them we've got 1 or 2 seasons already recorded. So that's kind of cool. I don't quite know when they're coming out. I thought they were soon, but who knows? Let's see. What am I recording? What do I have on? I've got Beastars right now on Netflix. You can watch that. I play Dom the Peacock. Brian Beacock playing a peacock. And then I think I've got a couple movies on Amazon Prime. Of course, my zombie web series, Acting Dead, is on Amazon Prime. And you can see Patrika Darbo in her performance that she won a Primetime Emmy for, which is very exciting. And that's it. I'm always on Instagram. I'm always on Twitter, and people can talk to me. I'm on Cameo, and just basically waiting for the next big thing.
Fantastic. And final question, what do you think Yumi Chika would say if he was in Australia?
If he was in Australia,
Mm-hmm.
I would leave here immediately if this place wasn't so gosh darn beautiful.
Fantastic. I can definitely picture him saying something along those lines. That would
Right?
that
I would love Australia.
that would be fantastic. That is wonderful. Brian Beacock, thank you so much. It's been an absolute honor.
Thank you so much. This has been really fun. I appreciate it.
Anytime at all. And is there anything you would like to say to the fans out there in Australia and in the world?
Well, to my fans in Australia, I can't wait to come out there and meet you. I've never been. I'm very excited to go. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Enjoy your life. Get some exercise. This will all be over soon. Keep watching TV. Keep creating. And be grateful. And we'll see you on the other side.
Absolutely. That is fantastic. Well, guys, if you'd like to find out more about Brian Beacock, you can check out the links which I'll put to in the description once this interview is finally up on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to HannaTalk. Follow me on both Facebook and Twitter, and don't forget to comment below. Thank you all so much for listening. This is Simon and Brian Beacock signing off. Bye for now.